right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the first Ontario 3 stream here at today's FTC Kickoff. For this next session, please welcome Ontario FTC Planning Committee members Mickey Cornet and Michael Nucci to talk about robot inspections and Game Manual 101.
Thanks for that introduction, Dave.
Hello.
I'm Mickey, and this is Michael, and we're going to be hosting this session today. We're coming to you live from Studica. I think they said in the introduction that Studica is the founding sponsor of FTC.
In Ontario, yes, I believe so.
Ah, that's pretty cool. They
Yeah.
got in early.
Oh, ground floor right there.
Yeah, to this fantastic program that we're running.
Oh, all right. Guess we're into it.
Excellent. We're into this presentation now. So we're going to do a rules breakdown for you guys. And one of the big things to remember for FTC is that the game manual is split into part 1 and part 2. So part 1 has kind of been released. When you read through it right now, you're going to see some parts that are state like refer back to this after the game has been released because they're making some changes. So while not everything is available, there's still a lot of information available now. And then if you wait until 12:30ish, 1 o'clock, once they've released the game, you're going to get Game Manual Part 2. And that's going to be the game-specific rules. So the safety-specific rules, the game rules, and then the game-specific rules of what you need to do in the game that's going to be released this year. You might be asking where you can find these rules. So they're going to be on the First Inspire's website if you go to the resource library and then specify FTC and then game and season info. And that's where you can find them. So, and then what's coming up new this year compared to other years, if you're a returning team, is the biggest change that you probably saw coming with the way the world is going, is we're going to be doing remote events, mostly in FTC in Ontario. So that's where you're going to compete on your own field and submit your own scores. The way you submit your scores is through the FTC Live Cloud software. If you went through this morning's Kahoot, you would have seen that question there. We kind of snuck it in. So what that means for you is that all robot inspections have to be self-inspected and carried out by your team. So you're going to have to specify specific people on your team to do it. Even if you're not doing a remote event in the future, I definitely suggest you do your own robot inspections before you go to competition, because this is an excellent resource to have, because then it means you go to competition and you're immediately going through inspection and can get on the field faster. So these are something, they're going to become forefront this year, but there's something that you should keep in mind for subsequent years when you can use these resources again, because they're not going away. They've always been there. And then for the scoring is also going to be completed by the teams using that FTC Live Cloud software. And to make sure that you understand the live scoring and the robot inspections, you should look at both the manuals that I was talking about before, because the Game Manual Part 1 is going to have a lot of your robot rules and how you need to have your robot configured to pass your robot inspection. And then Game Manual Part 2 is going to specify how you play the game such that you successfully score. Another big thing this year is that there's no maximum weight this year. So that's pretty cool.
Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So before I get started on, obviously, the forefront question in your mind here with inspections, if you have any questions for us, just pop them in the Twitch chat. We'll get asked at the end of the session. I don't know if that's been mentioned to you before, but it's probably good to know. We've allotted some time for that. If not, we're probably going to be telling jokes instead. So
I do have excellent jokes, Michael.
Oh, I can vouch for that. All right. So obviously the forefront question in your mind is, wait, I have to inspect my own robot? Yes. I won't be there. Other inspectors won't be at your build space. It's kind of difficult to do right now. So don't worry. It really isn't that hard. If I can do it, you can do it. So breaking down inspection, there's two main types of inspection. There's robot inspection and field inspection. Robot inspection is essentially the hardware of your robot, making sure that you're within sort of legal bounds, your robot doesn't damage anything, that kind of stuff. And field inspection is just essentially making sure your robot drives properly and the software operates as well as it should.
So what happens if I'm don't have my own fields and I'm actually borrowing one from another team and it's been sanitized and whatever, but does that mean my field inspection has to be done at the field, or can I do it on my own space?
It's a great question. You can do the field inspection without the field there. For example, last year at the provincial championships, we took everyone to the practice field to do the field inspection, but you don't even really need a field. As long as there's space to drive your robot around, you're good to go.
Excellent.
Great question. So both these are based off of Game Manual 1, which you all should have read by now. If not, I highly recommend reading it. I say it is imperative even that you read it before building your robot.
It is a great read.
Oh, riveting.
There are some pictures too.
Pictures help a lot. Never a dull moment with that one. Whew. Man, 3.3.2 league meets. I have the rules in front of me. I just picked a section there. I don't know it that well. Anyways, so these inspections, you don't need to know the rules off by heart. There are checklists. This makes it easier for inspectors and this year you. If you want to find them, they're Appendix B and C of Game Manual 1. It's under Team Materials, under that link there. You can screenshot it now. This is also going to be put up on YouTube later, so if you want to refer back to it and get it then.
YouTube or Twitch? I'm not sure.
I think VODs are on YouTube. It's live streaming on Twitch, right? I'm getting a nod from our
Someone
producer.
more important won't tell you
Yes.
these things.
Someone can put that in chat. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Please do. I'm wrong many times.
We know
Anyways.
what's going on.
Yes, definitely. All right. So, checklist. What is the checklist? All it is, just a condensed version of the rules. Make life easy for you. So it goes through and shows you what the rule is, a little space for a checkbox, or a check mark. The checkbox is for the check mark. I know how these things work. And then it references the rule, so that way if you need more information, you go back into the rule book and you can check the full ruling. So, highly recommend printing out a copy. It is a lot nicer to physically check other than going off a laptop screen.
It is much more satisfying to put that check mark in.
So satisfying. Also, not written in this presentation, but I highly recommend a clipboard.
They do make things useful, and they are light instead of having to carry something else that's heavier.
Exactly. And you can use it for later on in the inspection process, which I'll talk about later.
That's true.
I'm being very cryptic, but you'll see what I'm talking
It's
about.
exciting.
Cool.
Clipboards can be used for many things.
Oh, plus they're able to write on too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so checklists. It's divided into sections based on the content, which you can see here. So there's 4 of the sections there. You can see size inspection, general robot rules, mechanical parts and materials, and electrical parts and materials. So I'm going to pick a random rule out here. So in the general robot rules, we have robot does not contain animal-based liquid or gel materials, referencing RGO1, F, and G. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Don't stick your cat on your robot base and expect it to be able to pass inspection.
Mm-hmm. But if you need more information, that rule number that is in that column, that means go look at that rule in the game manual to further understand what that rule is trying to get to.
Exactly.
So it's like a quick blurb, and then if you want more information, go there.
Yeah. Some of them don't have that much more information. Like, I believe the rule I just referenced just has 2 full sentences instead of 1, but
maybe sometimes that wording makes a difference.
yes, it does sometimes. Robot size. So this is the first section. So I'm going to go through section by section, give you a heads up as to sort of what might throw you off a bit that isn't super obvious within the checklists. As we've mentioned, all these are directly related to Game Manual 1. So if you understand the Game Manual, you understand inspections. If you understand inspections, you understand most of Game Manual 1. Because there's a couple other things in there, but not super relevant for this talk.
So you're saying that to build your robot, you should read Game Manual Part 1 so that you know what requirements you're trying to meet when you build your robot.
Although you want better, you should read Game Manual 1 and Game Manual 2.
Well, that's not available yet.
You're right.
But I definitely agree that Game Manual Part 2 will give you those functional requirements of what your robot needs to do.
Exactly.
It's just functional or Manual Part 1 tells you how your robot somehow needs to do it, but not defining mechanisms. It's an intricate part right there.
Yes. A small distinction, but an important one.
Yes.
All right. So, obviously, make sure you built your robot before you start to inspect it. And it's in front of you and assembled. It's hard to inspect a robot from, that isn't there. It's kind of hard to check the size of it.
It is difficult.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't tried it, wouldn't like to.
Yep.
So, I'm going to emphasize this point. It was in the Kahoot. I'm going to say this once, and there'll be another slide on it. Make sure for your starting configuration, your robot can fit into an 18 by 18 by 18 inch volume. There were a number of teams at provincials last year, I guess our only event last year, that had some issue with this. It was all fixed pretty quickly, but please know that is a rule and try to follow it. Now, that is just the starting configuration. You can expand to basically unlimited size during the match.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can basically make it work. And yeah, that's about it for that. Now, I bet you're all wondering, how can you check this? I'll get into that on the next slide, because this is a rather important point, worth driving home. Well, I'm beating the dead horse pretty much, but hey. Another note, this one might be a bit confusing, because I think first time I looked at this, I didn't understand the rule. If your robot has servo motors that move as soon as power is turned on, make sure you have a warning label that says robot moves on operation, or on power, I believe it's called. There's a sticker inside the manual, you can see it. I probably butchered the wording. Basically, if you hit the power button and you have a servo motor that moves, have a sticker on the part that moves so you don't accidentally uppercut someone in the jaw. I haven't had it done to me, but I'd imagine it's not pleasant.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the sizing. So generally speaking, you have a sizing box to make sure it fits within your 18 cubed volume. So there's sort of 3 ideas that we're going to throw out here that can work for you. If you have a different idea that would work as well, go for it. Have fun with it. None of these are, well, I guess one of them is kind of standardized, but anyways, not important. So first of all, you can actually make an 18 by 18 by 18 inch box. Dave, if you would play the animation for us, please. Anyways, you may have a bunch of cardboard lying around. So you can tape together a box and put it over your robot. If your robot fits inside of it, you're good to go. It's great. One thing to note about the box, make sure your interior dimensions are 18 inches, not the exterior. Cardboard has thickness. You don't want to make your box too small for your robot. Anyways, moving up, you have the robot sizing tool. So that there is an example of a robot sizing tool. You can see it's a bit of a U shape with the interior dimensions being 18 inches by 18 inches. How you use this is if you have your robot on the field or on an area you're inspecting. See the robot there, and you select the inspecting tool one way, then the other way. Yay for fun animations.
It's great. It is excellent. It helps me understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's nice and easy and very informative. So that means both your side dimensions are 18 inches and your height's 18 inches. To make this, if you have some plywood, you can get someone who knows how to use a saw properly to just cut that out for you, and
it's a learning opportunity because you get to learn how to use the saw too.
Yeah. And then finally, this is actually what we ended up using at the provincial championships last year due to extenuating circumstances. You have a box that's 18 inches, or you make a tape box on the ground, 18 inches interior dimensions. You put your robot inside, and you run your clipboard along the sides. See, I told you I was coming back to that. Make sure it fits within the bounding box.
You keep saying the interior dimensions, and I think that's another point to drive home, because if the outside of your box is 18 inches, that doesn't help you at all, because you're losing that thickness that whatever that box is made out of, and now you're not exactly helping yourself with that, because you're making your robot smaller when it doesn't necessarily need to be.
Exactly. All these rules are here to help you, and also not to damage things. Those are basically the 2 main points of these rules.
Mm-hmm.
Also, check your height with a tape measure for that, but that's pretty easy. I don't think many teams have issues with height. All right, general robot rules. So these ones are fairly well defined in the checklist. There's a couple clarifications that for sort of stuff I would normally look for, although we've only had one FTC event, so normally look for is just one event experience technically. But anyways, so components that could damage the playing field. That is sort of bolts hanging out from the body of your robot or in a manipulator. Say, for example, I don't know what the game piece is this year, but it's an inflatable ball, let's call it. You have a gripper that has a bolt sticking out of it, and you clamp onto the ball, you're going to pop the ball. You don't want that. You can't score the ball then. It's no good. Or on the bottom of your robot, it could rip up your tiles, let's say, which this year, you're only really hurting yourself with that. So make sure you don't have anything that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Unnecessary risk of entanglement. Generally, the first thing that comes to mind for people is, I got a big net on my robot. If you have a big net, make sure it doesn't get caught on things. That means your robot gets stuck. You can't score points. Sad. That's it. For nets, at least. But one thing teams don't always realize is wire sticking into your robot. If you have a rat's nest of wires and some wires sticking out the side, your wire can get caught on something and it can get unplugged. Trust me when I say a dead robot is not a fun robot.
Yes. So what you're saying is if you follow the rules, it's really just helping yourself.
Exactly.
You don't damage your own things. If you have an awful mess of wires, it's really hard to debug anyway.
Yeah.
So if you route them nicely, it's a lot harder if you're having trouble with a motor not working or a mechanism not responding the way you want it to be able to trace that.
Exactly.
Wow. It's just, these rules are just trying to help yourself.
Yeah. Anyways. Don't know how to transition from that, so I'm just going to make it awkward. Anyways, so electrically grounding the robot. Basically, if your wheels are the only thing touching the playing mat and you don't have any sort of exposed wire, you're probably fine with this. I highly recommend checking out the wiring guide, which we point to later in the presentation, just to make sure your wiring's fine. Even more resources to help. This is all this presentation really is pointing in the right direction, make sure you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's the grounding strap, but that's, again, covered in the electrical section. Also, as per usual, make sure your team number is visible and you have the alliance markers of appropriate sizes and colors. And shapes, too, technically. Personally, my advice would be don't spend a large amount of time making these things look nice this year. You are on your own. People don't need to see them so much. If you have time, you can reuse them next year, so it's good. But if you are pressed for time, I wouldn't put a ton of effort into it.
But if you do have nice ones, it will look really great if you're taking a video of your robot doing its stuff.
That's true.
Because then it's really easy to see which robot it is, and you can take that credit because you did a lot of hard work on it.
Yeah, it looks nice. And nice-looking robots are always great to video.
Yeah.
And finally for this, just more of a, I guess, common sense thing. Make sure your robot can't throw parts of itself across the field. It's dangerous. It's bad for you. It's bad for everyone around you.
Especially like if you need that mechanism again. It's like, oh, it's all the way over there.
You have to go get it. And
it's just better if your robot stays together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanical parts and materials. These, I'm not going to go too in-depth because it's better explained in the manual than I could with the time we have, which, we're getting close to time there, so I should probably speed things up.
Oopsie. Too much. 10 minutes. Excellent.
10 minutes. Okay. We'll get through this fast. So for raw materials, make sure that it's a proper raw material. Check the manual for that. Single degree of freedom COTS parts are allowed. Multi-degree of freedom COTS parts are not. So single speed gearboxes are good. If you have a single input, so like a motor spinning, and you get a single output, that is single degree of freedom. Single input to multiple outputs, multi-degree of freedom. Not good. If you're sort of confused by this, legal and illegal parts list. Links there. It's a comprehensive list of parts that you can and can't use on your robot. There are pictures. It is wonderful. I highly recommend reading it. Well, I guess looking at it. Not so much reading in that one. It's a lot of pictures.
Pictures are excellent.
They're great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, we have electrical parts. So make sure your power switch and battery are securely attached to your robot and are easily accessible. If your robot goes haywire, you want to be able to turn it off. You don't want your battery flying out of your robot. It is bad. I've had it happen. Not a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Power from the battery, make sure it's wired up properly. Wiring guide can be found there. Since we're running short on time, I'm not going to talk too much on this, but just, make sure power goes to your motor controller, then to your motors, not straight to your motors, because you need to be able to control your motors. Useful. You can have 8 DC and 12 servo motors. There are 5 DC motors you can use, 5 different types, I should say, and 12 servo motors can be on your robot. If it's a 3-wire servo, you're probably going to be fine. Very few exceptions to that. But again, read the rules. Wires of appropriate color and gauge should be used.
Really? They specify your wire colors?
Yes.
Why do they do that?
Well, that way it makes it easy to trace and know where everything's going and know which ones are power, ground, signal, or otherwise.
Oh, that would make things a lot easier if you have someone else coming in to troubleshoot your robot too.
Exactly.
Because then they know what's power and ground right away without having to question it.
Yes.
Oh, so even when you're prototyping and not doing your actual wiring, you should still use the proper wire colors.
Yes.
Oh, it's just like standard practice.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to teach it to you with the rules. So you're just helping yourself here.
Always helping yourself with the rules.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, we have moving on to more field inspection here. So this is, I'm not going to go too deep into field inspection. There is, in the field inspector's manual, which I'll get to in a second, more of an overview. But so basically make sure your driver station phone is an allowed Android device. You can check that through the versioning or just compare it to the illegal and legal parts list photos. Whatever's easiest for you. Ensure your robot controller is either the Android device or the control hub. You can have either or this year. Android device has to be connected to an expansion hub, though, for it to work. Make sure you have wired game pads and the allowed ones. There's 4 different types. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there are 4 types.
Excellent. So many options.
So much. It's very customizable. All right, and
Driver station and robot controller software. What's up with the software?
Yes, for some reason I thought that was the previous slide. So basically, you got to make sure all your software is the correct versioning. There's a checklist of all the things you need to check and which version they should be. That will be on the checklist. Make sure you download the checklist just before you inspect, because they do change right before sometimes. If you run into issues on how to update your software, the Field Inspector's Guide, shown at that link there, will give you a full rundown of how to check all the different versions, how to update them in, more detail than I can do in the next 2 minutes by a long shot. That's what I would reference if I was telling you how to do it. So, might as well eliminate the middleman here. Beyond that, all the rest of the checklist does is make sure your robot actually connects properly, drives properly, autonomous runs, and you know how to disable the robot, because, runaway robots are bad. All right, and I think that's it on inspection stuff from me.
So then we got scoring up next. So we said they get to score your own matches, which sounds like a challenge, but it's going to be okay. We're going to have a multiple day window to submit your scores. FTC Canada hasn't really specified what that window is going to be based on what the event is, but that will be known once you sign up and register for an event. So you're going to have multiple days to submit your score on the FTC Live Cloud software. That way you have time and you're not too pressured, because you got to figure out how to do it right. This is going to be available through your firstinspires.org team user account. So once your team is registered and the game is released for the season, then you'll be able to see the scoring software. So we can't tell you too much about it because we don't know the game yet. So just wait on that one. So the information on scoring is going to be majorly in the Game Manual Part 2. This is going to tell you what counts as a successful score. So maybe you need to score something in a specific way or during a specific time in the match for it to actually be scored. And the way you're going to know the detail of how to do that is in Game Manual Part 2. So I definitely suggest reading that. It would also be helpful to read it before you design your robot, so you know what you're designing your robot for. Once again, Game Manual Part 1 and Manual Part 2 are really good things to reference.
I guess if you could say there's a theme of our presentation is
read the rules.
They're important. They're there for
are.
a reason.
So this isn't a lot of information on scoring because we don't know what we're scoring yet. So definitely check out the game reveal at noon. The robot game deep dive is going to give you more information on how to score things, what you're scoring, what you might be doing. And then remote events is going to give you more detail on how you might participate in remote events. All of those sessions are going to be helpful with that. I'm not saying the other sessions I haven't listed aren't great. Everything we're doing today is great and has lots of information in it, but these ones are specific to the rules and what's going on. So now it's question time.
Woohoo! And we even got 3 questions.
We have 3 questions. This is so exciting. What are they?
First one appears to be, what is a good way to check that it fits in the volume? I think we answered that with the slide, but
I think so. So there's a box.
Yep.
And then, so there's an actual box you make out of cardboard or wood or whatever, and the inside dimensions are 18 by 18 by 18, right?
Yes.
And you want to make sure one of those sides of the box is open so you can actually put your robot in.
Very important.
And then another option we came up with, we're not saying that these are the only options, but these are the ones we've thought of, is that like one piece of wood that has the cutout and you put it over your robot twice, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the one where you put tape on the floor, right?
Yes.
And then you use measuring tape to determine the height, and something that is flat and long, such as a clipboard, to see if it fits within that size. I think those were the ones we came up with.
Yes. I'm sure there's other ones you guys can come up with too. You're all relatively smart people.
Ooh, maybe we should make that a competition this year.
Ooh, send in
of
pictures.
just like different ways you can do your sizing boxes. Ooh, that could be fun.
I like it. We will bring that up.
We'll fight for this competition and see if we can make it happen. Okay, what's our next question?
Next question. What were some common errors teams made last year? Oof, I'm going to have to think back now.
Oh, I can think of a major one.
Oh, yes.
They didn't read the rules. That I think is your mistake part one.
Yes.
And then that causes subsequent mistakes.
Everything just falls back to that one mistake, or didn't read the rules enough.
It's true.
Yes. Yeah, so sizing box was a fairly common issue last year. Let's see. Oof, that was like, a lot has happened since then.
Mm-hmm. But don't go by those mistakes. Make your own and learn from them. But definitely read the rules.
Please do. Yeah, it's primarily sizing box. Just versioning and stuff mainly was sometimes an issue. Weight was never actually an issue last year for teams in Ontario. Mm-hmm. It was, I think highest was like 30 pounds. The max was 42, plus or minus half a pound.
But this year there's no weight limit.
Exactly.
So not going to be an issue there.
No.
As long as you don't have a problem carrying it around. Don't make it too heavy for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to, sink into the floor tiles so much. There probably is some upper band, just we're not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes left.
3 minutes.
What's our next question?
Next question. What would make a nice alliance marker? Well, the nicest alliance markers I saw were ones provided by Studica last year.
Ooh.
It was, let's see, foam in the middle, metal on the outsides, and it had a colored sort of vinyl sticker on it. And there was Velcro on the back, so you could swap them easy. But for you guys, that may not be the easiest thing to make, so maybe some corrugated plastic.
Corrugated plastic, you can do laser cutting.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a fun activity because you get to design it and learn how it gets manufactured. There's lots of different options you can use.
Yes. Just one of the recommendations I would make is have Velcro on the back on some sort of plastic or metal so you can swap them easy. Yep. And that way it doesn't rip paper if you're trying to. Paper and Velcro just don't go together so well. I wouldn't recommend it.
There are specific rules that your markers need to meet, right?
Yes, the size requirements, I believe, and just has to be red or blue size, and there may or may not be they have to be on opposite sides of your robot and close to your team numbers, if I'm not mistaken.
So they should read Game Manual Part 1 to get that information, right?
Yes.
Oh, this reading the rules. We just keep coming back to that.
Yeah. Wonder if it's important.
I think it might be.
Maybe. I don't know, though. Who am I?
All right.
What is a good way to secure wires? Good question. My preferred way of securing wires is small zip ties.
Zip ties, I think, are the best.
Yes.
In industry, that is what we use. I can verify.
I trust Mickey on this over me.
All right. So I think we have to wrap up. So thanks for joining us.
Yes.
I think we got all the questions, right?
Yes. And hopefully we had some people actually watching live. If not, hello to all those people watching the recording.
Yes. This will be recorded and posted. So hopefully this will be a reference for those of you go throughout the season.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe we'll have another session later going more in depth on inspections and scoring.
Yes. That's exciting. So thanks for joining us. Check out some of the other sessions.
Studica wants to help to inspire young people to pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and math.
FIRST has given me more STEM opportunities than anywhere else.
I'm a FIRST alumnus and now an electrical engineer.
Everything I learned in FIRST, I apply to my career.
FIRST has opened my eyes to the future.
We are proud to support FIRST Robotics Canada.